Welcome to the weird and wonderful world of old FIFA games. We're going to start here on FIFA 03, as that was the first FIFA I ever owned when it was released in 2002. Firstly, we're going to look at the goalkeeper, Ruslan Nigmatullin. He's a goalkeeper who can be found among the substitutes at Verona. The interesting thing about him is that EA has spelled his name wrong. Instead of Ruslan, it's spelled Russianlan. It's like they've taken his nationality and merged it with his first name. Back on FIFA 03, you had fewer leagues to select teams from. No second divisions for one thing, just the main league from several of the biggest leagues in the world, like the FA Premier League. So what happens at the end of the season on manager mode, where teams inevitably get relegated and promoted? Well, the game does store a bank of 6, I think, teams, which can be promoted from the league below. For the Premier League, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers, London, which is actually Millwall, Derby County, Leicester City and Ipswich Town. They only show up on manager mode. You cannot select them when you're beginning a manager mode, you cannot play a friendly with them, and you can't transfer players to or from them, inside or outside manager mode. But is there a way to play as any of these teams? Actually, there is. When you're due to face one of these teams, oh, and by the way, they all have the same badge. You can select a side and choose to play on the opponent's side. You can look at their full team too. There are some familiar names here: Mark Poom, Georgie Kinkladze, Malcolm Christie, Fabrizio Ravanelli, and more. We can look at the subs bench too. Grene, the right back there, is actually 81 overall, which isn't bad. I wonder if these teams have any reserves. If they do, we sadly can't see them. Now obviously you're playing against your own team in manager mode, so you probably won't want to save your game after you do this, unless you end up losing, of course. With several leagues to choose from in manager mode like La Liga, Serie A and more, I'd imagine that there's a pool of 6 teams that can potentially get promoted for each of these leagues. I wonder if anyone has ever documented all of them.
Yes, it had to be. We must see that a second time.
FIFA 03 has some really good hidden gems. In fact, I made a video about them, so I'll link to that in the description if you want to see more. Anyway, there is Victor Aguilé for Schalke, 93 overall. Fitness 10, speed 9, shooting 10, passing 9, strength 10, headers 8, ball control 10 and tackling 8. Jose Movilla for Atletico Madrid, 92 overall. Fitness 10, speed 9, shooting 8, passing 10, strength 7, headers 7, ball control 10 and tackling 9. Kizito Musampa for Malaga, 93 overall. Fitness 9, speed 10, shooting 9, passing 10, strength 7, headers 10, ball control 10 and tackling 8. And most famously, Matteo Brighi, 97 overall. Fitness 10, speed 10, shooting 8, passing 10, strength 10, headers 9, ball control 10 and tackling 10. Did you know that the legend Carlos Valderrama appears on this game? Probably one of the only times, if not the only time, he appeared at a club side on a FIFA game. He spent most of his career playing for teams that don't typically appear on FIFA, or at least didn't back in these days. But in the last season of his career, he played a season for Colorado Rapids in the MLS, which do appear on the game. He has his trademark afro, but it's brown rather than blonde for some reason. Did they think we wouldn't notice? Back in the old FIFA days, there weren't many licensed player faces on the game. Most players were basically just NPCs. We were limited to some of the most famous players in the world, like David Beckham and R9. Perhaps the most random licensed player is Landon Donovan, which doesn't even seem that strange, given the career he's had. But back in 2002, he had the majority of his career and accomplishments ahead of him. He not only has his real face in the game, but also a unique goal celebration. So what's the reason for this? Well, Landon was featured on the cover of the game in North America, so he was pretty much the poster boy for the game in the USA. If you know FIFA and EAFC, you're probably accustomed to the Rest of the World League, which features teams from leagues and countries that aren't in the game. On FIFA 2003 though, it's a little different. There are a lot of second division teams here, as we only have the first divisions from the world's main leagues, including Beauvais from the French 2nd Division, Cannes from the French 2nd Division, Elche from the Spanish 2nd Division, Köln from the German 2nd Division, St. Pauli from the German 2nd Division, Greuther Fürth from the German 2nd Division, Las Palmas from the Spanish 2nd Division, Le Mans from the French 2nd Division, Lorient from the French 2nd Division, Mainz from the German 2nd Division, Metz from the French 2nd Division, Zaragoza from the Spanish 2nd Division, Freiburg from the German 2nd Division, Tenerife from the Spanish 2nd Division, Venezia from the Italian 2nd Division, Verona from the Italian 2nd Division, and Jerez from the Spanish 2nd Division. On to FIFA 04. Typically, player stats on FIFA go up to a maximum of 99, but on FIFA 04, player stats could actually go up to 100. Here are some examples. Benja, who plays for Elche, has 100 for dribbling, and he's a centre-back. Enjoy a few goals from Benja. These were recorded a while ago on an actual PS2 rather than an emulator, so the quality of the footage is lacking a little, although the quality of the goals certainly isn't.
Let's it fly. That's the goal. Good length on the throw. Here we are, here's the chance. Look at that, another goal.
Then there's De Neuer for Feyenoord, who has 100 for aggression. And finally, there is Alessandro Parisi, who has 100 for both shot accuracy and shot power. This guy's like the Matteo Brighi of FIFA 04. I'm honestly surprised that this isn't more well documented. And what does 100 shot accuracy and 100 shot power look like in reality? Well, it looks something like this.
Now they've lost the ball and they could lose a goal. Gave it away in a bad area. Has a shot. They've taken the lead. This is skillful. There's a real scoring chance here, surely he will. Oh, and that's number 4. Can he shoot? And a goal!
One strange thing about FIFA 04 is the Brazilian League. Let me explain. So if you're playing a match, you can pick any team from the Brazilian League, no problem. But if you go to club transfers, the Brazilian League is nowhere to be found. Neither are the international squads, but, you know, that's what we would expect. But why you cannot transfer players to or from the Brazilian teams is puzzling. You can do it on FIFA 03 and again on FIFA 05 and beyond. But it's just on FIFA 04, at least on the PS2 version here. Club transfers are typically used to keep up with real life transfers. In this case it would be to replicate any transfers to or from the Brazilian league, but you can't. There is a player called Gonzalez Chiesa Rivaldo, playing for Venezia in Serie B. What's interesting about him isn't that he's called Rivaldo, but the fact that he was born in 1987, making him just 15 years old in this game, at least at the time of the game's release. Perhaps one of the youngest ever players in FIFA history. He has some decent stats as well, so maybe we can think of him as one of the original Wonder Kids. Sadly, his career never really took off and he spent most of his time playing handfuls of games for Italian lower league clubs.
What a goal that is.
Passing well together here. This is really moving this match. Has a shot, and it's a goal! Really searching for an opening here. Fires one. That's number 3.
There is one other player in the game that has shot accuracy and shot power 100, and that is Ronaldo. And with 98 overall, he's one of the highest rated players of all time on any FIFA game, which is fitting for a true legend of the game. Aside from the two famous Ronaldos, have there been any other players called Ronaldo on FIFA? Yes, there has. On FIFA 04 here, we can find a player called Ronaldo, playing for Maritimo in Portugal. Sadly, his stats aren't particularly good. This player's full name is Ronaldo Maszinski, and I believe this was his first FIFA appearance. He was originally from Brazil but spent almost all of his playing career in Portugal. Then there's Thiago Ronaldo, who first appeared on FIFA 08 playing for Vitória Guimarães. And then there's Ronaldo Angelim, a defender who has appeared on more than one FIFA. He made a ton of appearances for Fortaleza and Flamengo in Brazil. A strange thing about FIFA 04 is that the goalkeepers don't seem to like coming to collect crosses. Therefore it feels strangely easy to score headers, especially at close range. A good tactic to employ would just be to have two strikers with good heading ability up front and just keep crossing it in. FIFA 05 now, but before we get onto the full game, let's take a look at a pre-release beta build. This is a version of the game that would have been distributed to journalists prior to the full public release of the game. So those journalists could play it and write about the game to drum up interest. As such, beta builds like these often contain differences to the final game, such as features that haven't been finalised yet, or things that the game's developers decided to change. When you open a player's bio to see their stats, their club's first team kit should show in the top right hand corner, like you can see here. However, with certain teams on this build, in the top right it says no kit. But if we were to choose these same teams for a match, on this screen we can see that they do in fact have kits. So I assume it's just the texture that hasn't been implemented on the player bios. But there is one exception, a club that hasn't yet had its kit implemented. It's Vitória Setúbal from Portugal. Now we can see a kit in the players' bios, but it doesn't look quite right. If we take a closer look at a match, we can see that it's bright green and has the word Placeholder repeated all over it. I think this is really cool, but it's also strange that Vitória Setúbal seems to be the only team on this build to have this placeholder kit. One of the generic stadiums called closed square style has an interesting sign. If you look around the stadium here, you might spot various signs that say missing texture. Again, it's a sign that the developers still had work to do at this point, and not everything had been finalised. You can also see it behind the goal at either side here. As this is a pre-release version of the game, some real life transfers hadn't happened yet. For example, Wayne Rooney is still at Everton. During the 2002 summer transfer window, he transferred to Manchester United. Although this happened late in the window, and as I say, hadn't yet happened in real life, when this build of FIFA 05 was distributed to journalists. Something strange about this build is that there are certain players present here that aren't on the final game. The first one is David Darmon, a 30-year-old right mid playing for Elche. He's not an incredible player or anything that we'd really miss on the full game, but he does have a few standout stats. During the 2002 summer transfer window, he moved from Elche to Racing de Ferrol. Both Elche and Racing de Ferrol appear on FIFA 05, but for whatever reason David Darmon isn't at either club on the final game. Next are two players for Palermo, the twin brothers of Filippini A and Filippini E. Filippini A is in the starting lineup and has a couple of good stats, but is otherwise mediocre. Filippini E is the better of the two, stats wise at least, but is in the reserves. Antonio Filippini went on loan to Lazio around this time, but doesn't appear at either club on FIFA 05. Emanuele Filippini did exactly the same thing, and also doesn't appear at either club for some reason. And while all those examples are pretty puzzling, there is one that does make sense. On the beta, there is a player called Juan Carlos Lago, playing for Almeria. At 76 overall, he's actually their joint best player, especially with tackling 95. During the 2002 summer transfer window, he moved from Almeria to CD Mirandes, a team who aren't in FIFA 05 because they were playing in the Segunda Division B. On the FIFA 05 beta, there were also players whose stats changed in the final game. There are quite a few, but I've picked some of the best ones and put a team together. First we have Carlo Nervo. His overall is higher on the beta, 81 compared to 78. His pace is better, 95 compared to 88. His passing is way better, 95 downgraded to 83. Richard Nunez comes next. His overall is higher on the beta, 82 which dropped to 80 on the final game. His shot accuracy is 97 compared to 92. And his ball control is 93 which was nerfed to 90. Asun Sao is next. His long balls here are 77, reduced to 73 on the final game. His shot accuracy is 94 compared to 87. And his marking is 80 here, changed to 75. Savio now. His acceleration is 96, reduced to 92. And his pace is 95, nerfed to 89. Stamina too, 86 compared to 82. Strength 74, reduced to 64. Shot accuracy 88, lowered to 83. Anticipation 90, nerfed to 84. His balance was reduced too, 90 down to 87. Marking 72 compared to just 35. FIFA 03 legend Matteo Brighi is back. His stamina on the beta was 98, which was reduced to 88. And his passing got a slight nerf, 95 to 93. Giuliano Giannicheda. Pace 95, downgraded to 88. Stamina 95, downgraded to 90. His strength is 95 as well, nerfed to 92. And anticipation 95, reduced to 88 on the final game. Balance 95 down to 92. Marking 95 too down to 92. And finally, tackling 95 lowered to 89. Gianni Queda has perhaps the most stats that were downgraded on the final game. Giorgio Chiellini now. Yes, the Italian legend here when he was just 20 years old. He has pace 95 reduced to 91 and crossing 95 which was nerfed to 78 on the final game. Only two different stats but worth noting. Okay, Ruben next. Pace 95 reduced to 83 and marking 78 nerfed to 73 and tackling 95 downgraded all the way to 72. Lastly there's Miguel. Acceleration 95 downgraded slightly to 93 and his dribbling was reduced from 74 to 67. I wanted to showcase how good all these players are with their pre-nerfed stats, but to be honest, it just became the Richard Nunez show. He assisted Brigi for the first goal, then this obviously gave him a confidence boost, and he proceeded to go on an absolute rampage.
Gianni Queda. It's 2-0. That's number 3. Fantastic finish. Oh, and that's number 4.
Also on the FIFA 05 beta, there are some players whose names changed between this build and the full release. The first one is a bit obscure, a player called Radivoje Lekic. Not only did he transfer to Jerez during the 2002 summer transfer window, but his name on FIFA 05 also changed to Rajko Lekic. Another one, JJ Okocha, the Bolton Wanderers legend. On the beta he's called Augustine Okocha, which is his actual first name. On the final game his name was changed to JJ. But just JJ, not JJ Okocha. I wonder why this was. Okay, now we move on to the actual FIFA 05, starting with Regens on career mode. Now the concept of Regens or new gens was pretty new back then, even though it's commonplace now. Here's how they did it on FIFA 05. On career mode, whenever a player retires, a new player appears in their place. They will be a regen version of that specific player who retired. I have my old save here from when I was younger, where I've done loads of seasons. Let me see if I can remember who my regens are. Okay, we have Guido Hugendorp, who is a regen of Edwin van der Sar if I remember right. Cesar Rockenbach, that's Roberto Carlos. I can't remember who this was a regen of. Maurizio Favale, this is a regen of Paolo Maldini I think. Mohamed Lafourcade was Lilian Thuram. Richard Mulek was Patrick Vieira. Giulio Lucenti, that was Francesco Totti. Benoit Lecca was none other than Zinedine Zidane. Libor Hockmeister, I think this was a regen of Pavel Nedved. Romeo Oost, this guy is a regen of Roy Mackay. And Fatih Lavi, a regen version of Thierry Henry. And with these players being regens of retired players, they inherit certain things. For example, Fatih Lavi inherits Thierry Henry's celebration. And Benoit Lecca wears Predators, just like Zidane does on the game. Did you know that Paul Gascoigne was on this game? Back in 2004, Gazza played a few games for Boston United before retiring. meaning that this is the last FIFA game he appeared in when he was a player, before returning later on as an icon card.
The home coach must be very pleased at this moment in time. His team have started very well, very fluent,
And you can hear from the atmosphere.
There are some players on FIFA 05 who appear in international squads, but don't appear at a club side. It's because the player's club side doesn't appear on the game. It's a bit of a shame because there are definitely some players within the international squads I would have liked to have signed on my manager mode. There are quite a few international locked players, but I'll just pick out some of the best ones. Turkey, there is a player called Serkan Balki. He's a young 21-year-old midfielder with decent stats. He's already a 3-star player. He could have been a good manager mode buy, as he would have developed into a great player. He just transferred to Fenerbahce in the 2004 summer transfer window, and they're not on FIFA 05. Then there's Ibrahim. On the face of it, he doesn't look like a great player, but he has good pace, acceleration, and crossing, making him a good winger. And he happens to have 93 for tackling, so maybe he'd be a good fullback. At the time, he was playing for Besiktas, who weren't in the game. Okay, Costa Rica and the legendary Walter Centeno. His physical stats aren't great, but his technical stats are decent, including 81 passing and 83 shot accuracy, as well as 82 ball control here. Centeno played for Saprissa in the Costa Rica League at the time. Okay, who's next? In the Greece squad, we have Vasilis Lakis. He's a right winger with good stats across the board, particularly pace and passing. Decent shooting too. On the second page of stats, again, there's not really a bad stat among them. He transferred from AEK Athens to Crystal Palace in the summer of 2004, but for whatever reason he's not in Palace's squad, and AEK Athens aren't in the game. Uruguay now, Federico Magallanes. A midfielder with good physical stats and decent technical stats, notably stamina and strength, and his passing is good too. He also has good marking. Overall, he'd be a solid addition to most teams. According to online sources, he seems to have left Sevilla in 2004, but didn't join his next club, Eibar, until 2005, so I guess he was a free agent at the time of the game's release. Let's venture into the depths of League 2, the UK's fourth tier of football. At Swansea City, there's a player called Lee Trundle, who is 69 overall. Nice. If we go to the second page of stats, we can see that he has composure 90 and creativity 84, two very good ratings. But why? Well, around the time, Trundle gained a degree of internet fame for his on-pitch skills, and EA certainly took note. But you might be thinking, well, couldn't EA have just noticed his talents without the online hype? Well, perhaps not. Adebayo Akinfenwa is another cult hero here in the UK, known for his rugby player-like build and correlating strength. But back in FIFA 05, his strength was just 45, and he had 72 pace. FIFA 05 was the last PS2 FIFA game to feature Adrian Mutu, as Adrian Mutu. Sounds strange, right? Let me explain. Well, here he is at Chelsea, who had just signed him. Good stats all around too. After a strong start at Chelsea, he fell out with Mourinho, was banned from football for 7 months for failing a drugs test, and in retaliation, Chelsea sought compensation for breach of contract that wasn't settled until 2018. Likely due to his ban, Mutu was excluded from FIFA 06, even though he was now playing for Juventus. And he was still not present on FIFA 07. EA finally brought him back in FIFA 08, but under a different name. Instead of using his real name, he was now called Andre Murgu, which stuck for the remainder of his appearances on FIFA games, as far as I'm aware. Back in the days of FIFA 05, it was still unusual to see players on the game with boots of any other colour than black. You can see that pretty much every player has the same boots, and actually they're more grey than black. One guy in the wall does have red boots though. Perhaps the rarest colour of boots in the game is gold. There are only a handful of players in FIFA 05 who have gold coloured boots. One is the goalkeeper for Rapid Vienna, Helga Paya. Let me know if you can name any more. Enzo Maresca, who is likely a familiar name as at the time of recording this video, he's currently the manager of Chelsea FC. However, he was a decent player during his career too. One little weird thing is that aside from his overall rating being 86, every single one of his stats ends with a 5 or a 0. When you start a manager mode on FIFA 05, you'll usually only have lower rated teams to choose from. On this manager mode here, the two highest rated teams I can pick are Dundee United and Hearts, in the English and Scottish leagues that is, and they're 3 stars each. However, you can get this list of teams to re-roll. Go back out, play a match, and start a new manager mode once more, and the list should have changed. And just sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get Rangers and Celtic to show up, who are both 4 stars each. So if you want to start a manager mode with a better team, give this a try. There you go guys, consumer advice in a 20-year-old game. Useful, right? A strange thing about this game is that EA don't seem to have had the license to use the names of 2 clubs, Sampdoria and Fiorentina. If we look in Serie A, we can just see Doria rather than Sampdoria, and there's a fake badge on there too. Fiorentina is called Firenze, which is the Italian name for the city of Florence, which is where the team is based. Again, there's an unofficial club badge too. Before we move on to FIFA 06, we take a stop off at the FIFA 06 pre-release beta. Like the 05 one, this would have been received by journalists, and they would have used this build to write previews about FIFA 06 and drum up interest before its full release. There are at least 2 teams which have the placeholder kit we saw in the FIFA 05 beta. Both Fenerbahce and Shakhtar Donetsk have the placeholder kit. If you played a match between both teams, that could make for something pretty crazy looking. 2 of the licensed player faces on this pre-release build are quite strange. First is Gascoigne Mendieta. He has these crazy lines across his face. No idea what's going on here, probably just a glitch. However, I don't think that's actually his face behind all that. I think that's just actually one of the standard player faces. On the final game, everything was back to normal though. The second strange player face belongs to Juan Roman Riquelme. The first thing to note is that it's actually not the face of Riquelme. I believe it's David Beckham's face, although it's not the same specific version of his face that's in FIFA 06. Also, there's writing on his head. Looking closely, I believe it says Starhead, which means this was probably a placeholder, waiting for Riquelme's real face to be added in. Again, on the full game, it's as it should be. Like with the FIFA 05 beta, there were transfers that were yet to happen in real life when this build was created. Michael Owen was still at Real Madrid, for example. In the 2005 summer transfer window, he moved to Newcastle United. Michael Essien was still at Lyon in this point in time. In the same transfer window, he moved to Chelsea. And Robinho is another. He was still at Santos at this point in time. Then he moved to Real Madrid before the transfer window closed. It's funny to note that he is by far and away the highest rated player at Santos here. Also, like on the FIFA 05 beta, there were players whose stats were higher than on the final build. I've picked out a few, all of whom play for Shakhtar. Alano is rated 86 overall on this build, while he was downgraded to just 73 overall on the final game. That's minus 13. Nigmatullin was rated 88 overall and was nerfed to 81 overall on the final game. Difference of 7. Jadson, another Shakhtar player, was rated 87 on this build, but on the final game this was reduced to 77, that's minus 10. And Vukic was rated 86 overall, dropped to 78 overall on the final game, an 8-point decrease. Lastly, on the FIFA 06 beta, we have the fake players. This is a strange group of players who are all called fake player. Now, are they all fake players as their names would suggest? Well, no, I don't think so. I think they're actually placeholders for real players who haven't been finalised yet. And there are 62 pages of them. Let's just take a look at some of the highest rated ones. Well, we have a goalkeeper for Atletico Madrid. I assume this is Leo Franco. His nationality is down as French for some reason though, so their nationalities needed to be finalised as well. A striker allegedly from Scotland, born in 1971. Not sure on this one to be honest. There are a load of players from Porto too. I would guess that this goalkeeper is Helton. And this striker appears to be Shefki Kuchi, but he was at Blackburn Rovers at the time and never played for Porto. So I guess some of these players are at the wrong clubs too. Figuring out who all these players are would take forever. So we'll leave it here for now and move on. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me explore this further. Okay, on to the actual FIFA 06 now. Firstly, we go to Vasco da Gama, where we can find a striker called Rodrigues Lopes Joao. He's in the reserves despite being the highest rated player on the team by some distance. But there's no one by the name of Rodrigues Lopes Joao, who played for Vasco da Gama in 2005. In fact, this is actually the Brazilian legend Romario. For whatever reason, EA wasn't allowed to use his real name, so they just gave him a different one. I honestly have no idea why. Do you remember when we talked about Landon Donovan's licensed face in FIFA 03 earlier in the video? By this point in time there were way more licensed player faces, but some of the players they chose to license are quite strange. The precedence has always been that the best and most famous players in the world have their real faces in the game, but EA went a bit off grid in FIFA 06. I think the Belgium squad is a good example. First up is Eric de Fland at right back, just 71 overall. He barely has a stat above 70. Walter Baseggio, just 75 overall. 3 stats in the 80s, so maybe I'm being a bit harsh here. He's certainly not the worst player in the squad. And then there's this guy, whose name I cannot pronounce. Tom Soteres? Only 70 overall anyway, and in the reserves. His attributes are all pretty bad, only a few above 70. FIFA 06 was the game that brought us Classic 11 for the first time. A chance to play as some of the game's most legendary players, including the likes of Eric Cantona. Only there was one problem. For some reason, EA accidentally made him left-footed. Now I have checked this and he was definitely right-footed, although he didn't have a bad weak foot and was known for being pretty versatile, so I can see where they might have gotten confused, but still. And in the sequel, FIFA 07, he was still listed as being left-footed. And in FIFA 08, he was still listed as being left-footed. And in FIFA 09, you guessed it, he was still listed as being left-footed. In fact, it wasn't until FIFA 10 that EA finally changed Eric Cantona to being right-footed. It took them 4 years to fix this mistake. On to FIFA 07 now. In this game, it's possible for your goalkeeper to execute a rabonna. This clip is one I filmed years ago, so I was keen to see if I could recreate it for this video. So I used the same goalkeeper, Simon Mignolet. passed it to his weaker foot, and instead of kicking it with his right, he rabonna'd it with his left. You can probably do this with other keepers, but I thought the best way to try and get it to work again was by using the same one, and it worked. There's a curious glitch in FIFA 07 with David James's hair. Yes, really. If we zoom the camera in, we can see that he has short, dark hair. Seems normal, right? Well, if we zoom the camera out, his hair changes from brown to blonde. David James did previously have blonde hair in his career, so this was perhaps something that was carried over from a previous FIFA. So his far LOD model still had blonde hair, while his high-res model had his correct dark hair. Another quirky thing about FIFA 07 is the Sampdoria starting 11. It contains no natural defenders. All their back four are midfielders. At right back is Zenoni, who is a right-wing mid. Their centre-back, Palombo, is a left mid. Then there's Tulizzi, the other centre-back, who is a centre mid, and their left-back Pieri is a defensive midfielder. And then they have 4 midfielders as well. So that's 8 midfielders in total. In FIFA 07, players have their overall rating, but this changes based on the position they're playing in. When we looked at Sampdoria, you might have noticed, for example, that the midfielders who are playing in defence all have a rating like 70 out of 69, for example. That means that Pieri here actually plays better in left back than he does in his preferred position of centre midfield. With that in mind, I've picked out some of the best overall increases for players playing out of position. Coming in at number 6, we have Lorik Sana for Marseille. He's a centre defensive mid, 74 overall. But if we play him at centre back, he gets a rating of 80 out of 74, an increase of 6, thanks to good stamina, strength and tackling in particular. Okay, number 5, Bjorn Schlicker of MSV Duisburg. He's a right back, but if we move him into centre back, he gets a rating of 80 out of 73, an increase of 7. He has good stamina, strength, marking, tackling and heading. Over to Guingamp in France now for a number 4. And we're looking at Thierry Racon. He's a 69 rated defensive mid. Let's play him as a striker instead, and suddenly his overall rating goes up to 77. That's an increase of 8. He has good heading and finishing, as well as decent dribbling, acceleration, speed and shot power. Number 3 is Marcelo Matos of Corinthians in Brazil. He's a defensive midfielder who is 69 rated. But let's play him in centre back. Suddenly his rating jumps to 80 out of 69. That's an increase of 11. Again, good stamina, strength, tackling and heading are to thank. Number 2 is Gil, who plays for Tarragona, also known as Gymnastic. Gil is a left forward, who is rated 77 overall. Let's play him in left mid instead. His rating jumps up massively to 90 out of 77, an increase of 13. He has good sprint speed and stamina, as well as amazing ball control and dribbling, as well as good acceleration, great crossing and great short passing. Okay, number 1 on our mini list is Juan Carlos Menzies for Wolfsburg. He's a right forward who is rated 68. Let's play him in right midfield instead, and his rating jumps to 82 out of 68. That represents an increase of 14. That's the highest increase I could find. Like Gil, he has good speed, ball control, dribbling, acceleration and crossing. There are 2 players who have no faces when viewed in their squads, or club transfers. The first one is Alberto Frison for Treviso. Instead of having his player face in the top left, he just has a blank silhouette. And the second player is Alfredo Cariello for Crotone. Similarly, he has a black silhouette instead of his face in the top left. I believe these are the only two players in the whole game to be like this. Of course, in game, they do have faces though. There was a glitch that could happen with throw-ins on FIFA 07, where the player would stop holding the ball and it would kind of bounce on the floor, then head to its intended target. This is some old footage from one of my old videos actually, and it's the only footage I have of it. And we can't really have a video about FIFA without talking about Wonder Kids. It's become a staple of the series to discover the best future talents on manager mode. Of course, there were players that EA accurately predicted would become some of the world's greatest players, like Rooney and Ronaldo. But let's take a look at some of the more random Wonder Kids from FIFA 07, the ones that perhaps didn't quite hit these highs in real life. Goalkeepers. Guillermo Ochoa. He goes up to 88 overall on my save here, although some say his peak potential is 91 overall. He was obviously a good goalkeeper in real life, but never hit the highs of 91 overall, reaching his highest overall of 81 back on FIFA 19. Next is Austin Ejide, rated 86 overall on my save, which was his peak potential. It's safe to say he never hit these highs on any other FIFA or in real life. The last goalkeeper on our list is Quentin Westberg. He's 84 overall here, but his peak potential is 88 overall. Sadly, he didn't manage a single cap for the USA in real life. Okay, right back, starting with Antonio Barragan, who has a peak potential of 85 overall. From what I can see online, his highest rating came on FIFA 10, where he was 77 overall. Then there's Gonzalo Castro, 87 overall. Peak potential is 89. In real life, he played a ton of games for Leverkusen, but only accrued 5 caps for Germany. And Micah Richards. 88 overall here on my save, but he does go up to 90 overall allegedly. He had a good stint with Man City early in his career, and was capped 13 times for England, but never became one of the best fullbacks in the world sadly. Centre-backs now, Philippe Senderos first. 88 overall here, but does go to 91. He did receive 57 caps for Switzerland in real life, but never really performed consistently well at club level. Anton Ferdinand, the brother of Rio Ferdinand. His potential is 90 overall, making him one of the game's best centre-backs. He had a decent club career in real life, but was never capped at international level. And our last centre-back is Stephen Taylor. He's 86 rated on my save here with a peak potential of 88. Like Anton Ferdinand, he was a solid player in the Premier League, but never played at international level. One left back to mention, and that is James McEverley, who is 87 overall here, his peak potential. In real life, he didn't hit these highs and spent most of his time playing in England's lower leagues, although he did earn 3 caps for Scotland. Right mid now, and just one to mention, Julien Faubert. He is rated 85 overall here, but apparently he can get to 89. In real life, he did play over 100 times in the league for West Ham, and famously went on loan to Real Madrid, but only managed 1 appearance for France. Centre mids, starting with Evandro. He's rated 86 on my save, but can go to 89 overall. In real life, he was never capped for Brazil, and even had a stint with Hull City in England. And Mathieu Debuchy. Better known as a right back, he must have started out as a centre mid. His peak potential is 87, just 1 higher than he is here on my save. In real life, he played for Newcastle and Arsenal in the Premier League and managed 27 games for France too. Left mid, Kieran Richardson. He was incredible in this game, going up to 90 overall. In real life, he was a solid Premier League player at Sunderland and Fulham mainly, after failing to break through at Manchester United. And he was capped for England 8 times. Attacking mid, starting with Curlon. He was the internet sensation famed for the seal dribble, and FIFA took note, giving him a potential of 88 overall. Sadly, in real life, it never worked out for Curlon, and he barely made any appearances for any club over the course of his career. And then there's Ramon, another Brazilian wonder kid. He's rated 86 here, but can go to 87. In real life, there's really not too much to report. Sebastian Tirala. 86 overall here on my save, but can go all the way up to 92 allegedly. In real life, he spent his career in Germany and earned 1 cap for Poland. Thomas Karlenberg. 87 overall here, but can go to 90 apparently. He did rack up 47 caps for Denmark in real life, and made 130 league appearances for Auxerre, but never hit the highs of 90 overall. Strikers now, starting with Terry Dixon. He's up to 85 overall here on my save, but he's still only 21 and can go up to 88 overall. In real life, he sadly suffered some injuries early on in his career, from which he'd never really recovered. Thiago, 88 overall. Peak potential. He had some decent stints at Cruzeiro, Cagliari and Santos in real life, but was never capped at international level. Claudio, 87 overall here on my save, but does go to 89. He had a very unassuming career in real life, even playing in Thailand at one point. Pedro Aldoni, rated 87 on my save but can reach 89 overall. In real life, he never really nailed down a starting spot at Atletico Paranaense, and left on loan a few times before moving on permanently to several different clubs, all of which he played a handful of games for. Nilmar, a beast at 90 overall, and can go up to 92. Some people even report that his overall can reach 94. In real life, his career was decent, if unspectacular. He notably played for Villarreal and notched up 24 caps for Brazil, scoring 9 goals. And our last player, Rafael Sobis, another Brazilian wonderkid. He's rated 90 overall, and while some sources say this is his peak potential, others say it's as high as 96. Like Nilmar, you may recognise Rafael Sobis, as he had a stint in Spain playing for Betis. However, it wasn't that successful and he soon found himself playing back in Brazil. He was capped 8 times internationally, scoring 1 goal. There's an interesting glitch that occurs sometimes on FIFA 07 where you can't touch the ball and neither can your opponents. This is another clip from a while back, hence the quality, where no one could get the ball and I was frozen in place. But then somehow I was able to move again and finish it. Then there was another time where I could run around, but I couldn't lock onto the ball. Neither could the other team. In the end, I managed to knock the ball out of play, and the game resumed with a throw-in. FIFA 08 now on the PS2. FIFA 08 was also the first FIFA to be released on the PS3, but we're looking at the PS2 games in this video. Anyway, on the PS2 version you get quirky stuff like this. If we go to the Italian 2nd Division and go to Vicenza, we can find a left back called David Brivio. The strange thing about him is that he has Eric Cantona's face for some reason. I have no idea why, I guess it was just a mistake. But that's not all. If we go to the Italian 2nd Division again, and go to Bari, we can find another Italian left back called Luca Antonelli. And he also has Eric Cantona's face for some reason. I actually made a whole video about this if you want to check this out in more detail, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. Also, if we go to Bradford City in England, we can find a player called Paul Evans. He's a starting centre mid. For some reason, there's a massive black square over his face and the club badge. As far as I know, he's the only player in the game to have this glitch. In a match though, he looks normal, so it's not like he plays with a big black square over his head or anything. But that would have been pretty funny to see. FIFA 09 now, and 2 glitchy player pictures I found. The first is Yeon Ki-hun for Ulsan Hyundai. His hairline is strange. It has weird sort of squares in it. I don't know about this one, it's just a bit odd. Secondly, there's Adan Vergara for FC Zurich. He has these weird white bits coming out of his head, at the top left and right, and also at the bottom left and right to a lesser degree. It's like there's a white square behind his face, but his hair is partially covering it. Oh, and Luca Antonelli still has Eric Cantona's face. David Brivio didn't appear on this game, as I guess Vicenza dropped down to Serie C, which isn't typically in FIFA games. FIFA 10 now? Yes, there was still a PS2 version of FIFA 10, despite this being the third FIFA on the PS3. And you guessed it, Luca Antonelli still has Eric Cantona's face. That's 3 years this glitch has existed for now. Well done on that one, EA. And if you're wondering, this is the same Luca Antonelli that went on to play for AC Milan, and even earned 13 caps for Italy. Just think, his humble beginnings were those with Eric Cantona's face. And guess what? David Brivio is back, as Vicenza are back. And he still has Cantona's face as well. Sadly, Brivio didn't have the career that Antonelli had, although he did go on to have stints at Lecce and Atalanta after his time at Vicenza. And our final fact of the video is, did you know that the last FIFA game to be released on the PlayStation 2 was FIFA 14? That's 6 years after the first FIFA game was released on the newer PS3. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, I have a treat for you. I have released and uploaded the FIFA 05 beta and the FIFA 06 beta for you guys to play. And you can find links to them in the video description. So if you've watched the video right until the end, you'll know to look for them. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.